Inside the St. Louis Art Museum is an exhibit like no other.
I need everyone to know that we have one of the largest collections of Max Beckmann's art in the world. German museums want collections as good as ours.
Max Beckmann is one of the most notable names in modern art, and he has a close personal relationship with St. Louis.
And if you come to the museum, you'll always see works by Beckmann. You'll see this beautiful gallery that's hung with some of his largest scale figural works, right? But what's on view is only half of the paintings that we have in the collection.
St. Louis Art Museum curator Melissa Venator knows all about Beckmann. She has a research background in 20th century German art and is charged with setting up exhibitions like this one.
You have this really special opportunity to get a sense of the full arc of his career. And, within the museum, it's very rare that we can do that for any single artist.
How the art museum became the custodian of such a vast collection is as interesting a story as the artist himself. His popularity dates back to the 1920s with more realistic oils of current events and living people, like this one, Titanic. But through much of his career, he was labeled an expressionist, a description he despised.
So he was very clear in his lifetime that he was not an expressionist. And I think that really confuses a lot of people because, especially when you look at the art that he made in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, it bears all the hallmarks that we think of when we think of expressionist painting. So what do I mean by that? Abstract shapes and forms, bright colors, strong outlines.
Venator acknowledges Beckmann's work turned dark after World War I, reflecting his mindset following his experiences as a medic in the field.
His work, day in and day out, was to transport dead and dying soldiers, and that created a traumatic experience for him. And a lot of these very tortured figures that you see in his paintings first appear at that time.
In the 1930s, as World War II approached, Beckmann's work continues with dark outlines, mirroring what was happening around him in Germany.
It's highlighting that surreality, and that kind of opens a window into his thinking on the cusp of what was a very difficult time for him personally, and also world historically with the rise of the Nazi Party.
Adolf Hitler himself tried to make a living as an artist before he rose to power, and his views spilled into politics. The Nazis confiscated works by Beckmann and other famous artists, from Van Gogh to Picasso, and at an historic art show in July 1937, their works, along with Beckmann's, went on display as degenerate art at the so-called Shame exhibition. It was a worldview that saw modern art as vulgar and a threat to German identity. Some of Beckmann's works, like those of other affected artists, were sold for foreign currency to other countries, while others were destroyed. However, Beckmann had already grasped what lay ahead and had emigrated to Amsterdam with his wife the day before the exhibition.
So certainly many of Beckmann's works were lost during the Nazi era due to confiscation and destruction or loss. However, because he had the foresight to really bring his studio contents with him, first to Amsterdam and then to the United States, it remained intact for the most part.
Still exiled in Amsterdam, the end of the war gives Beckmann an opportunity to reestablish his connections in the United States. He's then invited to teach at the School of Fine Arts at Washington University here in St. Louis, and did so from 1947 until 1949.
So his arrival in St. Louis was the start of a chain of events that led to this collection. And one of the big links in that chain, especially in terms of our fantastic paintings, was this fantastic individual named Morton D. May, who St. Louisans will know through famous bar department stores.
The department store mogul had been casually collecting art and was introduced to Beckmann's work.
He purchases a painting at a New York gallery by Beckmann in 1948, and then is so interested in him that he commissions Beckmann to paint his portrait in 1949 as a way to finally meet Beckmann. May just became committed to building what became the largest collection of paintings by Max Beckmann in the world, and did so in order to give it to this museum.
And May delivered on his promise. Beckmann's exhibition is one of the few displayed chronologically, beginning with a rare bust of the artist himself, who is known for his self-portraits, usually on canvas.
We do have some really fun paintings that he made here in St. Louis, and this is one of them. And you know he made it in St. Louis. You know, in '49, he could have been in New York. He spent part of the year here and part of the year in New York. But you know he made it in St. Louis because down there below his signature, you see STL. But he kind of famously assigned still lifes as the first assignment that he gave all of his students at Washington University.
Before Beckmann leaves to teach in New York, St. Louis holds the first American retrospective of Beckmann's art in 1948.
Beckmann was always excited to see these big shows of his work, and I think it's important to understand he hadn't seen a lot of these paintings for decades.
He returns in 1950 to receive an honorary degree from WashU. That same year, the 66-year-old artist is walking to his second retrospective of his life's work at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Tragically, he collapses and dies from a heart attack, never getting to experience it. But his work lives on through the Art Museum's latest display, a paper exhibition entitled Day and Dream in Modern Germany. It runs through February 26th.
When you think of the St. Louis Art Museum, both nationally and internationally, a lot of people think of our fantastic collection of modern and post-war German art. And in some ways, it had its source here with our Beckmann collection.